Well, you know, they're going to have to make a transition here. We didn't talk about Marcus Naslund, guys, but this could be his final game in a Canucks uniform as well. He's an unrestricted free agent following this season. There's speculation that the hockey club, I should say, doesn't plan to re-sign him. So Naslund is free to go wherever he chooses, I think. So there is going to be a real change, I think, in the dynamics, the personality, and the transition of leadership with this hockey club. If you were to ask me right now who could wear the C for Vancouver, I couldn't really tell you one guy that I think is made to wear the C right now. But that is something that's going to happen next year for sure.
My guy'd be Mitchell, Tom. Would you think? Or there's BX is another great leader. But what about Willie Mitchell? Would he be a candidate?
Well, Willie definitely would be a candidate, Ron, and a good one, too. Willie is a guy that's been in the league now for a while. But, you know, there's another guy. Matthias Olin is another guy that's been really kind of the nuts and bolts of the Canuck defense these last few years. I don't know how much longer he's going to play on. He's going to play out his contract anyway. But he would be another guy that probably would be a candidate. I don't know. After that, I think there's a few young players yet. We have to see what they can do before you can give them the ultimate honor of wearing the C on their sweater and representing the Vancouver Canucks as their team captain.
You're right about Olin. That was a huge blow here in the vital last couple of weeks. That seemed to be the Canucks' bugaboo about the last 6 years. Remember the time that Colorado and Peter Forsberg beat Marcus for the scoring title? Just couldn't, if they could just settle down with the pressure. You know, the crowds in Vancouver are so great, but maybe, I don't know, it can be a real asset, but it can be a real enemy when that pressure, for whatever reason, for the last 6 years, seemed to cripple Vancouver in a lot of those situations.
Yeah, but you know, Ron, if you're a hockey player, this is the time of year. This is the kind of pressure. Exactly. I mean, you want hockey players that want to be on the ice when you need the goal the most. Those are the kind of guys that you want to make up your hockey club. You don't want a bunch of players who squeeze the stick so hard because the pressure is so keen. Come on, you're never going to win anything that way. No, and I've said publicly, too.
Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I was just going to say, you know, I really strongly believe until a franchise, you know, takes the position that anything less than winning the Stanley Cup is not a good year. I mean, so many teams are so content just to make the playoffs. I don't think that's the kind of mentality you have to have. Well, I think when you start the season and you build your team, no, I know it's the toughest grind in sport, Ron. I realize that. Yeah. But you know what I'm saying? Sometimes you can get pretty satisfied. And, you know, people out here in Vancouver are pretty desperate for a champion. Not to say you guys back in Toronto.
Yeah, very similar situations,
it's
actually.
It's been a long time between drinks. Huh?
Yeah, it's a very similar. And, you know, Trevor, who, by the way, will join Scott and Kelly when they're obviously doing the sweaters off the back promotion right now, but we'll have Trevor join us on the broadcast as well. He always said, look, being counted upon is everything. And back in '94 when Pat Quinn was kind of at the helm, and those were the two things they had, was that kind of spine was... and Pat did it. Trevor told me an interesting thing. When Donnie Meehan had his 50th birthday party, his agent, they went over to Scotland and Ireland. I was lucky enough to be on the trip, and Trevor was there, Dave Manson. We were golfing together one day, and Trevor was explaining to me how Quinn was by far the greatest orator, the greatest speech maker, the most amazing motivator, except when he'd get negative. He says, Pat, we loved him so much that if he got a negative vibe going, we all kind of started to walk around in a fog. But he obviously, I mean, Pat's record speaks for itself, and Lyndon loved him, and he loved being counted upon. And that's where they're at now, is they got to figure out how to get the Sedins to that level of thinking, because clearly Henrik and Daniel was first time being in the driver's seat last year. We saw it with Vanek and Buffalo this year. PJ, you want to join them?
Well, yeah, you're talking about taking a few steps back, Tom. They're also losing their captain. Maybe their one of their top point getters, Marcus Naslund. They didn't have a game all year where all 6 defensemen, starting defensemen, play together. Right. One was injured all year, so they're still pretty far back. And I don't know if the coach is going to be someone that might pay the price at the end of all of this. So I don't know if you're going that way or not. But Tom, do you see Tom? Tom, do you see Vigneault leading this team in a few years to come?
Well, I certainly think so. I mean, he was the coach of the year last year. Obviously, when you miss the playoffs, all bets are off. It depends what the ownership wants to do right now. But I think Alain Vigneault has proven that he's a quality coach. They bought into his system a year ago. The team played a different style of hockey, a suffocating defensive style of hockey built around a solid defense and great goaltending from Luongo and good special teams. And they were able to achieve some pretty good things. They won the division. They made it to the second round. I'm not sure that the players all bought into that system this year. Injuries didn't help, but, you know, they'll be the first to tell you. Injuries, you can't use them as an excuse. All teams suffer through it, some a little bit more than others. But if you were to ask me, is this team that we saw tonight good enough to make the playoffs? Yes, it should have been good enough to make the playoffs. Right. It didn't, so it's a big disappointment this year.
Playing that style like Devils after they won in '95. Couldn't buy into it again in 1996. Tom, wish we had more time. I was going to get you to tell the story about John Stackhouse, and you know what that means instead of Shorthouse. First time you interviewed him. There goes Trevor's jersey. Yeah, so, Tom, thanks for being aboard tonight. I know your fans in the Lower Mainland and BC would have loved to have heard from you. That was great.
Well, thank you, guys, and give me my warmest regards to Don, too, will you?
Sends his love.